I hope you guys had a wonderful weekend, but we're about to go from all-time highs to a sudden stock market crash. And today we're going to be going over some technical analysis for the SPY Qs, Apple, Tesla, Amazon, Nvidia, and AMD. And we're going to start off with the SPY right now. Okay, on the SPY here, we have updated that weekly range for you. You have 495.40 to the upside, and then you have 479.42 to the downside here. Now, the important thing with these ranges is if we do get up towards this top side here, we would be outside of the weekly and outside of the monthly at the same time. And as we are going into the end of the week or end of the month here, we need to pay attention to that because we only have a few days left. So if we do get excited early on this week, January 31st, which is that date that we really need to pay attention to for that Fed interest rate decision, could come in handy because if we do get excited, get outside of this, we could see some kind of sudden drop to pull back into this area, which we land in 68% of the time. Now, these weekly ranges, if we did come up to the upside of that pretty quick, I would just pay attention to that. But if we look down on the MACD on this daily chart here, we can see that we have some divergence forming, and we see that right here on the MACD, and we see that forming on the RSI at the same time. Now, these haven't confirmed yet, but I believe that since, these divergences up here, I mean, I think there's not even really divergence up here, so we didn't really count this. I think we had it on the Qs. So we did see a little bit more selling, but now you're getting it on the SPY, on the RSI and MACD at the same time. And that's what we really pay attention to for some kind of topping process here. So I do believe that we are going to top out. And when and if this signal actually does cross and confirm, that's most likely the sign that, hey, we're going to see some pain coming. If you did miss my Saturday video, that's okay. We're going to just go over it a little bit here. This wonky price action, yes, we notified you, hey, we're going into an area up here where we're most likely going to see slightly bigger swings. And guess what? We get the swing up, swing down, swing up, swing down, swing up. So we do have multiple scenarios here. We could start falling down right now with some kind of head and shoulders at these levels. Or we actually could head higher with some kind of maybe head and shoulders to go to the upside, or just some kind of continuation triangle at this point. Okay, so we need to pay attention to both sides of the coin as of right now. But if we do end up going up first, I think this is very, very good to know. If we end up going up in the first 2 days of this week, really pay attention to that around the 31st, because we could be getting some reaction to go up to what's expected by the options market, right? That 495.40. And then we see that sudden drop to come back in by the end of the month, meaning we might see a sudden drop on January 31st. Now, if you were looking at this 30-minute chart from the technical perspective, we would say, hey, we have triple divergence up in here. If we do get one more roll up, maybe that is just some kind of fake out. These monthly ranges can come in as resistance as well. So maybe we do just touch another point of reference up in here, get a quadruple divergence, which is going to be right next to that negative territory. But the important part with this is we need that bad news. And I know I've said that for a little while now, but we need some kind of bad news behind these divergences, or we're going to see that remain in positive territory and maybe just make another run and make divergences in the future, which will give us another chance for that to happen. So that could happen before January 31st. I'm really paying attention to the 30-minute charts of this week because I feel like these 30-minute charts are starting to hint, hey, we're seeing some weakness and momentum. If we get some bad news, we can get into negative territory and start going down pretty quick. It was the Qs on the day that had this flatness of the MACD, and you didn't necessarily have it on the RSI at the same time, but look what happened anyway, right? We saw this drop off and come below the 20, and then we saw that buying back up. Okay, so we see it buying back up. What's happening now? Now you have that divergence on the MACD, on the RSI at the same time. So if this is able to confirm soon, then we could see some stronger pain, some bigger pain going on. And real quick, if you want to see, here's that weekly chart, and you'll notice this divergence still hasn't confirmed. But if we would have that daily divergence confirm and we do see some pain going on for a couple of weeks, guess what? This weekly is going to roll over and you have divergence as well. And when I say you have the divergence here, the important part with looking at the weekly is we could go into a weekly negative trend, right? Which means that this just continues to go down over time in some kind of negative trend. So that is something to be very aware of. But since last week we did mention this is the area right in here that we want to pay attention to for the Qs, maybe even this little zone between, we did have that weekly range like right up in here and we touched it almost to the dot. So this was where we wanted to pay attention, and guess what? We're getting that selling to come back in. Okay, so it's just something to pay attention to when you're looking at these daily divergences. we really want to pay attention to the weekly next, because if that confirms, then we could be going into a negative trend, which means very bad things for 2024. 30-minute on the Qs. I actually think the Qs have a good potential to go up. I mean, we drew this out. It looked like some sort of flagging at this point, not necessarily dramatic selling, just kind of controlled selling, going a little bit down and sideways. And you'll notice that the MACD is still near that positive territory on the 30-minute. So we do just have that single divergence up here on the MACD and the RSI at the same time. Who's to say? I mean, we're right next to that positive territory. We do have this consolidation. Maybe we do pop up one more time to give us a triple divergence. And what that would do is we'd either test this high, maybe we even go all the way up into those weekly expected moves. And just to tell you guys, those weekly expected moves for the Qs, 433.54 to the upside and 414.08 to the downside. And with these monthly expected moves, you'll notice that this would get us outside that monthly expected move. And then we'll look for January 31st, because January 31st, we will get that Fed interest rate decision. So January 31st is going to be very, very important. And you guys know, if you're a part of my Patreon, I do give the monthly ranges for all of the stocks that we cover in my videos. So if you do want those monthly ranges, they do come in handy. So if you want those, they're going to be down in the description, and just click on my Patreon link. Apple, on the daily perspective, we do see this selling coming in right here. Okay, we see some selling. We could gain some, support from our 50, from our 20 within this zone, right? We like to burst out of a zone, right? We burst all the way out of this, and then we come back in it a little bit, and then we use that to go a little bit higher. Way back in the day, you guys remember when we were talking about way over here, right? Way over in this area, we bursted back past an important zone. What do? Well, we sell off a little, touch inside of it, and then we spring higher. So that still could happen. The only other risk we have here for this, that would be a scenario for it to head higher, so a bullish scenario. The bearish scenario here is the Qs are going to go make a new high, while Apple actually doesn't confirm that and starts to head lower. This could be set up as some kind of lower high at that point. And if it does roll over into this negative territory, we're most likely going to, break out of this wedge, and we're going to see some turmoil happening in Apple, because we are going to see a MACD starting some kind of negative trend. And 30-minute, there isn't a ton here. I would really be looking for some kind of touch of this zone, and then maybe we can talk about some kind of, head and shoulders heading in the future for a bullish scenario. Bearish scenario would be that we just continue doing what we're doing right now, right? We're seeing a little bit of a negative trend, right? So we're seeing a breakdown, we kind of build back up, we break down, we go sideways, and then maybe we just keep doing that type of thing all the way down. So this is what we want to pay attention to. I do still believe Apple has a good chance to get a reaction from this zone, but will that actually be able to cross this high, or is it going to set up a lower high? That's really what I'm kind of playing with this week, and I'm going to be watching Apple very, very closely. Amazon, we were mainly talking about on the daily chart how there's a divergence on the MACD, right? There's this divergence here on the MACD, but it's not necessarily on the RSI at the same time. So what does that mean to us? Well, that means, hey, this is a pretty high probability of being just some kind of dramatic pullback, and then we start to head higher. That's exactly what ended up happening, and now we're making another point of reference for some kind of triple divergence on the MACD, but an actual divergence, if we did want to drop from here, we would see that divergence proven on the RSI as well in the most recent, price action here. The most recent divergence, it actually would be at the same time. So we do have earnings that are coming up this week for Amazon, and I can tell you right now, if you're part of my Patreon, you already got this, because I posted those weekly ranges for Amazon and the other stocks. Amazon has a big range this week. Okay, a big range this week. I think it's like 20 points up or 20 points down. So that is what we're going to pay attention to. That means that 159, we could see this thing all the way down towards 139 by the end of the week, which is something scary to think about, because you kind of look at this low. This is 144. This is pretty much 144. So 139, I actually have to pull this down a bit because it's all the way down here. So that means that we could head all the way down towards this area before we actually see some kind of bounce if we want to get there early on this week. The 30-minute, how this would want to break down if it wanted to do it right away. I mean, I think we do have a chance for this to head just a little bit higher, but overall with all the divergences, that daily divergence and things like that, we could really see this thing start to die out. You do have a 30-minute divergence here. You have that 30-minute divergence on the RSI at the same time. So we have to pay attention to it. So how this would want to break down, most likely we're going to see this little area here come into play, get some kind of left head and a right shoulder in this area, maybe with some consolidation right before earnings to then head lower pretty quick. Now, I don't trade around earnings. We talked about this with Tesla. I could be completely wrong and we could see Amazon report good numbers, report good guidance, and that thing could go up. So I am staying away from Amazon this week, even though the weekly ranges are telling me it's going to be volatile. It's still a 50-50 chance, right? Because I don't know exactly what they are going to say with the earnings report, and therefore I stay away from it and I trade a different stock. And if you were still thinking about not staying away from a stock during earnings, this is your example, right? We see the earnings come out. We had divergences down here that we were talking about, and we're not even going to go into the shorter time frames because there's no divergences. There's nothing really going for you. It really is in a big negative trend. And guess what? You know, Tesla was one that we mentioned way up here when it was about to cross way up here. If this thing is able to get into negative territory, that's when the real selling comes in. And look what it's happened since it got into negative territory right around this bar right here. Boom, we get that big drop, and then we get earnings. Even though we have those divergences on a 30-minute, on an hourly, we need some good news behind it in order to pop. And this is why I stay away from stocks around their earnings, because I don't know what that number is going to be. I don't know what their forward guidance is going to be. So I stay away from it and I don't try to guess. Nvidia is a different story than a lot of what we've talked about so far, right? Nvidia just kept skyrocketing. We really thought that there was going to be some kind of divergence formed up here. I really thought that was the case, but at this point, it looks like people are just piling in to Nvidia, and we're way outside of that monthly expected move. That monthly expected move is, you know, somewhere down in here. So that's just something to pay attention to. We're well outside of it. We can remain outside of it, but 68% of the time we do like to land back within it, and we do only have a few days left. So we could see some dramatic selling as of this week goes, but we need to pay attention and make sure there's some bad news behind these divergences before we really get bearish. Now, on the RSI, you're way up here in overbought territory. Now, we can remain overbought for a little bit of time. On a daily scale, that could be a week or two. So we want to pay attention to that. But if we just start to lose some moving averages, you're probably going to take the next one. If you lose this one, you're going to take the next one. And the fact that our price is so far away from those moving averages, it isn't the best news. It really means we're possibly going to see some dramatic selling coming in Nvidia very soon. AMD, a little bit similar story to Nvidia, right? We're up here. We're really far away from these other moving averages. So if we wanted to just go test one, that's going to be a pretty good sell-off. Now, I do still have that monthly up for you on AMD. That's going to change after Wednesday, and I'm going to put that out Wednesday night. Okay, so if you do still want the weekly and the monthly ranges for any of these stocks, go down and click on my Patreon. It's a really good place, and I know that a lot of people that are a part of it have been messaging me. You guys are enjoying it, so I really appreciate that. But if we do see some kind of roller over up here, we could be testing, you know, the 20. We could be going down to test the 50. That would mean that we're going to drop how much percent if we just go test the 50 from where we're at right now? Well, that's going to be about a 21% drop. So in this area, outside of this monthly range, right, and we do have that chance to 68% of the time land back within it by Wednesday this week, it's just a good point to be like, hey, maybe I will take some profit off the table. I know that's what I did as of right now, and I'm going to be looking for some of these crash signals to really confirm. TLT is still holding that signal, right? Because we noticed that the TLT, which would be maybe the smart traders, are actually selling this off while the SPY is actually heading to higher levels. So we've been paying attention to that. It is still holding strong at this point, and we have to look at what they're going to say at this Fed rate decision. Now, if you're surprised where TLT is, well, maybe you weren't watching my videos a few weeks ago, because this area right in here is what we've talked about the whole time. This little bundle in here and all of this price action in here can be used as support, and that's right where we're moving sideways. Now, TLT before a big announcement does like to mostly move sideways, so really I would think this is just going to move sideways for a couple of days before we get that Fed rate decision. If we do get some kind of reaction up, right, TLT buying up, that means the yields are going to be coming down, which is good things for stocks. So maybe we do actually get a bounce and get a, another point of reference on the Qs for some kind of triple divergence on a 30-minute chart. So I'd really just be paying attention to this week, see if we get some kind of bounce that could be short-lived. and we are in that negative territory at this point. So if we start to break down below this level, we can kind of cut through a lot of this pretty quick. The VIX, I mainly want to talk about the daily and the weekly with you guys today. Okay, the daily here is important because where are we? We're right next to that positive territory. And we've been doing a pretty good job with the VIX, and it's starting to get up towards positive territory. The last time we were able to get into positive territory, look where the VIX ended up. Well, it ended up with a reading of 23.08 after a few weeks. Okay, so that just means that when we do get into positive territory, bad things happen. And so if we are able to see some volatility come back in, we can see volatility remain for quite some time. And the reason that we're paying attention to the daily getting into positive territory is because this weekly chart, okay, the weekly chart for the VIX is showing you a big divergence down here on the MACD, on the RSI at the same time. And if that's able to cross up and get into positive territory, well, the last time that we got into positive territory, when we were at these levels, let's just take this one right here. Okay, the last time we were able to get into positive territory, we actually saw volatility go up past 36. Okay, so this is why we need to have just our crash alert on, right? We need to be alert to these signals, because if these start to confirm, it could mean that volatility is here to stay for weeks and weeks on end. So the main takeaway here is, yes, we did get that all-time high, and that's exactly what we've been talking about. We want that all-time high narrative. They are going to use it to bait you into thinking that this is going to go higher, and that's exactly when the rug pull is going to happen. We're pricing in way too many rate cuts still, and we need the Fed to really snap us back to reality this week with that Fed rate decision. So I do believe we are going to start some kind of downfall in the next, it could be 5 trading days, and then we might start to see this thing fall down. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. You guys are liking, subscribing, commenting. It's always great. I hope you guys did have a great weekend, and I wish you guys all the luck in the world trading throughout this week. Peace.